welcome to the Open Forum special performance of the Poetry Jam. We're here at Bolton North Apartments where we host poetry, the poetry. We meet here at Bolton North the last Wednesday of every month between the hours of 6:30 and 9. Outside poetry are also welcome. We've had many visitors so far to come in. We've had folk from the Griot Circle to come in and talk, share stories with us. And so this is what this venue is for, to share your joys, your sadness, your hopes, whatever, in poetry. So what I want to do tonight is I'm going to share, if you all remember, I'm still writing this out, but I haven't really exposed a lot of my own stuff. And so, of course, my ego is going to let me do that. So this one, if you all remember when George, was it George Jr., George, the little George, Bush ran for president, and like Trump, who stole this one, that's what their feelings were about George Bush. So I wrote this piece at that time called Ode to Colonization. If you all know, I'm very political in my poetry, but I'm also, you know, romanticist as well. I wrote this piece called Ode to Colonization. So it wasn't enough that he stole an election, but he has the audacity to have us assist in the rape of a nation. They call it war. I call it colonization. But I understand that nature will come to reclaim what is hers, and maybe there are just too damn many people on this earth, too many sitting around and wasting time doing drugs and doing crime. They call it war. I call it colonization. They even used the colon to set up the plans, put him out front to tell the world where we stand. He went on about his work trying to be nice, but he was too soft, so they threatened with fights. They call it war. I call it colonization. How could so many of you have forgotten? Is it because you wear and are not picking cotton? How do you think we ended up in this place? They call it war. I call it colonization. Now, they tried to save their race by committing genocide, going from country to country, pontificating their pride, feeling superior to those of color, making the masses mistrust one another. They call it war. I call it colonization. When the Europeans ventured out of their home to seek wealth, newness, and fame in Rome, they sought new cultures different from their own. Not wanting to understand it, they would colonize the zone. I call it colonization. Now, I heard one of the politicians say freedom takes a long time. They'll be in Iraq for a while, rape everything to the last dime, claim to put down a hideous, bloodthirsty regime. I see them claiming America all over again. They call it war. I call it colonization. Now, when they came to America bearing trinkets and gadgets, the people who lived here died by their own hatchets, in the hands of those who wanted their land and would fight to death the very last man. They call it war. I call it colonization. Can anyone else see what is happening but me? They call this war, but I don't agree. They're acting like children at the candy store, exploring the wonders of a really good score. They want first pick at the spoils of war. They don't even want to be aligned with the coalition anymore, as if it were possible to keep it all to themselves. America has never been good at sharing the wealth. Since they can't create a world of their own, they look for small worlds that they can easily take down. then dare their enemies to protest or resist. A pretentious bunch of folk the American is. Think about how we came to be, and remember we may go down with the enemy for just being on the American side. Anything else would be genocide. Our lives have been compromised, but that's our future, the chance you take when you've been colonized.
All right.
But yeah, we're still being colonized. In our community, if you look around your communities, they've taken everything. There was an article yesterday on about that building down there on Division, and that somebody is going to get paid for it burning down or knocking it down. Just that kind of stuff. Where Sandtown, Winchester, which is the mecca for black folk in Baltimore, has now been colonized or re-colonized. Gentrified is the word that they like to use. You're getting in the supermarket and all, thinking that this is going to benefit you, but it's not. But anyway, let me get off my platform. That's not what we're here for, but I just want to show you that poetry can speak whatever it is that is your passion, and you can change and make a difference in other people's lives with your passion. You might think, well, I'm only one person, but it's only one person sometimes that you need to make a change. I mean, look, Trump, he's only one person. Look what he's done, how much damage. So.
You would mention him, would you?
No, I'm sorry, we ain't supposed to talk about it. Puts a bad taste in your mouth. I'm working on a piece called Dear Alexander. It's a play, and when I write stories, when I write plays, I always like to use history. So Alexander is the name of a Russian poet named Alexander Pushkin, Sergei Sergeyevich Pushkin. And the reason I'm focusing on him is because he was the poet laureate of Russia in the 18th century. But nobody knows that he was African. He was a descendant of the Moors. So he was a black, African Russian. And so because he was ostracized, one, for being black, but mainly because he spoke up about society during that period, I decided to write a play about him. But I didn't want to, go back to, just a total story. So I incorporated it so that it would be current. So actually, Alexander falls in love with a woman in this time, and he's still in the 18th century. Anyway, I wrote this piece because I wrote this poem in response to Vivat St. Thomas, which was a Budweiser contest back in the 80s, 90s. And I won the contest with this poem. Now, he wrote a poem called My Used Ignorance, and it talked about how they treated him in the palace. Because he spoke out, they started bringing up the fact that he was black. And so they ostracized him, and they sent him off to a place similar to Siberia, where he wasn't allowed to write or do anything. And so in response to his a letter, My Used Ignorance, about how he was treated, I responded as if this is in this century. So I say to him, your name did not die. It lives on and it floats inside of me with the roar of the tide, the sound of the fallen tree that transcended and echoed through time, reaching, and I feel your pain, your anguish. Your soul lives on and I feel your presence. It is in each breath that I take, each move I make, and I didn't know until now that it's you. And like you, my used ignorance has been jarred by that same demon's hand, and yes, but unlike you, I have been born into this madness, his cruelness, his contempt for me. I would be shocked if he were any different. Your dream of a world great and beautiful is yet still there, and though you nor I may never really see it or exist in it, oh, but to dream of it. I've been shown that world will someday be, because he's being consumed by his own fear of what he has become, always afraid of his own cruelty and baseness. He's been shamed by his loftiness and biasness. Find that he's not changed over eons of time. Evil, like good, never dies. And those that drift to evil find that they have launched this evil only to rebound back to consume them. But again, their own vanity and arrogance have kept them lost and frightened, but has only strengthened me. The call for freedom is not asleep. It continues to ring even louder because the voices are many. Their eyes too have become clear. Truth cannot change what it is. You can only turn your back on it. That's it. So, he talks about how cruel and the chains and the beating, you know, they were the slaves back there. But he was the son of a king, but also a fantastic poet and author. Okay, so that's enough of me and taking you down that road. We have Jean, you have another one to share with us, or May? Miss Linda? Okay. We're gonna stop early tonight if you all don't mind, because I have a tape in the morning with Ms. Gubernatis, and so we need to get up early. Okay?
Okay.
Oh, and of course, you all want to eat, you know, we have goodies over there.
This book is called The King's Fisher Book of Funny Poems, selected by Roger McGough, and this poem is also by him. It's called I've Taken to My Bed. I've taken to my bed, and my bed has taken to me. We'll be married in spring. How happy we shall be. We'll raise lots of little bumps, a sleeping bag or two. Take my advice. Find a bed that's nice. Lie down and say, I love you.
Oh, that was cute. Thank you. Why you came up with here?
Yeah. She talking about me. She give me one compliment and take it back.
Okay. I got you.
Wait a minute. It was another one I wanted to read. Okay. The name of the poem is On Some Other Planet, and the author is John Rice. On some other planet, near some other star, there's a music-loving alien who has a green estate car. On some other planet, on some far distant world, there's a bright sunny garden where cat lies curl. On some other planet, a trillion miles away, there are parks and beaches where the young aliens play. On some other planet, in another time zone, there are intelligent beings who feel very much alone. On some other planet, one that we can't see, there must be one person who's a duplicate of me.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. Remember when you used to wine me and dine me? Send me roses to the office, card, just because. Remember when we used to take long walks in the park, share picnics on the beach after dark, just because. And what about that time you put that cigar band on my finger and asked me to be yours forever, just because? Remember how you used to hold me close through the empty darkness of night? I felt so, just because. And do you remember how we used to dream of what life would be for you and me, filled with love and family? And remember that day you told me you loved me, just because. Thank you.
That's why you laughing, man?
Gosh.
You see?
You ever wonder why the world's gone so crazy? Why we're becoming vulgar, loquacious, and lazy? Could it be all the mix-up during slavery? being inbred, you could be siren with Aunt Dave. And when your brother Toby was taken suddenly in the night and then sold to the master on the left, or was it the right? Or maybe his cousin showed up in the middle passage flood and then mated with his sister Sadie from the last play. I, for one, think it's very, very possible that our bloodlines have been crossing for a while. Ever notice how sometimes a certain way Uncle James smiled, like somebody you may have met in eye to eye? And have you ever visited a new town before and found that you look like somebody named Cousin Roy? Or the father of some strange little boy whose name happened to be the same as yours, Leroy? Maybe they're nuts because the bloodline's too thick. They're so anxious to sell, so they snatched us up quick. Just couldn't wait to cash in on that meal ticket. Didn't keep good records on where everybody went. Now, if the blood's too thick, it's slow to the brain, and that's why when you get pissed on, you think it's rain. And you wear gold in the shape of a chain, as if you needed anything else to be restrained. You're running about, denying your roots, wanting desperately for Armani and Versace suits, or oversized t-shirts and Timberland boots, while he sits home counting his loot. They're never gonna like the things I say, but you need to be made aware anyway. Better say what we have left, cause there might come a day, but, oh, hey, don't T-Bone kind of favor Cousin Ray. Thank you. Why don't we take a break at this time and we can get some refreshments, and if you all want to share a little bit more, you can. We're going to stop around 8 tonight. That cool? Welcome back to a special episode of the Open Forum. We're here at the Bolton North Apartments with the Poetry, and we meet here the last Wednesday of every month. So any of you who are watching and would like to be a part of this genre or a part of this venue, come on down and share your poetry with us. This next piece I'm going to do, I guess, growing up, how we end up being ostracized by our own people. And so, bullying, you know, that's an issue that is in the news right now too, and has been for quite a while, about bullying and how bullying can affect you emotionally. And so, what I've been doing, praise the Lord, is writing out stuff that hurts me. And that way I figure I can deal with it. So these are things that I wanted to share with you about being bullied and what it means, how things have made a difference for me. So you thought you scarred me for life. The hard names you called me caused me so much strife. Blackie, Sambo, Tar Baby ran through my head constantly. Names I'd applied to myself believing it was me. My hair wasn't long or straight or soft enough. You wouldn't embrace me because you thought my black skin would be too tough. My lips were too big, soup coolers you called. My butt and tits were way too much for your taste, said all over a mouthful was such a waste. Blonde hair and blue eyes were sexy to you, so I thought I had to have some too. You didn't care if I could add 2 + 2. Your words wreaked havoc on my self-esteem, so I concentrated on my fertile brain, and I obtained self-knowledge, saw some of the world, and found inside myself a beautiful girl. And out of her, this woman emerged, filled with joy and a sense of self-worth. The beauty I possessed was not on the outside, but buried deep and built with pride. So I forgive you for your ignorance. All fools should at least get a second chance. To understand what beauty is, look at the outside of me. My scars come from my struggle to be free. All right, Miss Arnett. Oh, I thought I saw you. Miss Linda, you gonna stay there?
You didn't find anything?
Oh. Okay, I guess I have to monopolize this particular episode. However, Miss Joanne, anything?
I didn't look in.
Well, we still have time. This is not, it always tickles me. I met this girl years and years ago, and she had the most beautiful hair. It's incredible. And I attempted to touch it. And she got so upset. Would you touch my hair? So I said, okay, no problem. Sorry. So while standing in the mirror and brushing her hair, oh yes, she was very fair. And as if anyone in the room cared that she had straight hair, she would say, well, you know, I got Indian in my family. At least that's what they tell me. Well, my heart went out to her, because it didn't occur to her that it didn't matter. She was still, but it seemed that she really needed an identity, dismissing the fact that just being black could have such an impact on changing the course of society. But in her heart, being black was a calamity. She just wasn't satisfied. She didn't feel justified. She didn't know about the time when we were chattel and treated like cattle and then placed in a shackle, headed to parts unknown. So, we were herded together and feeling alone. Hearing the constant drone of the beating drum in its monotone, beating the rhythms of hope that is gone. And as she brushed her hair from side to side, shaking her mane with narcissistic pride, not caring about the ones that had died in the Middle Passage ride. But then she's part of the mental genocide. You can tell if you're Susquehanna or Cree, but how many of you know if you're from Nairobi or Gambia? Now it's amazing that she could raise that fact of what transpired among her Indian family some time back, but couldn't tell me nothing about the one part that was black. Was her great-great-grandfather a warrior, a chief, or JoJo? It amazed me that even some of us are afraid to know. Seems we're ashamed of that part of our name, since nobody from the motherland came to reclaim. And it wasn't the trinkets they were after anyway. If anyone had showed up, they too would have been forced to stay. But still, the spirit of them, they left in trust with just a few of us, who would be able to deliver us across the river. So try to remember those who came before us. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I saw some books open around here, so I guess we're going to get some more poetry. Plus my ego. There's a yeah. When I first started doing theater, when I first started doing theater, I think you guys have heard this before. I don't know how many of you have heard it, but I'm also a songwriter. And
Hey, can we have the copyright to it?
it's my song. I wrote it.
So
I
we
have all
can
the copyright
use it.
to it, so
Right,
we can
right.
use it. But it is. I hope I can remember all the words, because it was. I want to do the lighter part. I want to do the sweet. You know, I can do the nausea too. Close it all up. You all can relate if you have ever been married or had kids or any of that, and you all can relate to this particular song. I hope it comes out right. Somebody's flushing the toilet. This is not the one that I just did. If ever I could touch your hand, I'd never let it go. You're such a beautiful man, someone I'd like to know. I can almost taste you, feel your sweetness on my lips. If you only knew, my dear, the thought of you makes my heart skip. If ever I could hold you near, through time we move as one. Yes, we would be the happiest two hearts under the sun. You're like a fine red wine, aged to perfection, like plums full sublime, with some deep perfection. If I could have your love, life would be brand new. You're like a fine red wine, aged to perfection, like plums full sublime, with the sun's deep perfection. If I could have your love, life would be brand new. If I could have your love, life would be brand new. Life would be brand new.
Very nice.
I wrote that. Well, folks, I just thank you all for coming down and supporting this event. We'll be looking for you next month. Come prepared to share your poetry or your stories with us. So I want to say goodbye. Thank you. We'll see you next month on Open Forum, special edition, poetry jam at Baltimore. Thank you.
Thank you.